So recently I had to have a really tough conversation with one of my clients, and I, for lack of a better word, was fired or put on a pause. And it was an interesting conversation. It was really a tough conversation for me because it doesn't happen often. I can't remember the last time it happened. That's how long it's been. And again, that's not to brag, but I have done my best to find the approach for everybody. And one of the reasons we put up all these videos is to educate you guys to understand, what's the life outside of the exercise. There's so much more to lifestyle and to your goal than just the exercise that we're able to do with you. And we only have so much time with you one-on-one to help you. So we need to be able to support you guys outside of that, the other 23 hours if you may. And part of that approach is been educating you guys in terms of like what's right and what's wrong. These have to be in quotations, related to what your goal is, and sort of demonstrate that we understand where you're coming from. We understand your concerns, but more than often than not, we know what we're doing, right? And I revert back to saying me because this is a situation that happened with me. So this client was concerned that because we were doing resistance training, that they were going to put so much weight on that they were going to actually lose weight or lose body fat. And it was an interesting conversation because I knew in my heart that the concern wasn't that, not their concern, but the reason why things may not have been moving as quickly as they could have was a combination of nutrition habits, because we hadn't found the right approach in terms of nutrition. We're trying different things and we hadn't found something that stuck yet. And at the same time, they were having very hard time coming in to do extra exercise outside of our sessions, getting their steps in, etc., because they were really busy at work. And that's by no fault of their own. But one of the reasons that we exist as trainers, as coaches, is to help you at least be in somewhat forced to show up a certain amount of times a week and be accountable, because it is easy, as most people know, to sort of brush it off and just focus on what has to get done in terms of work and family, etc., right? So back to the situation. The concern was that they were getting ready. They had to fit into a certain event outfit in the near future, probably within 6 months. And they felt like they were concerned that they were putting on muscle because we were doing a lot of resistance training. This person was doing a little bit of cardio on top of that, but not much. But the concern was that they were going to be too bulky, as the words are. And once we went up to the scale, I immediately saw that everything that person was considering a concern was not in fact a reality. The scale was actually telling a little bit more of the truth. It was the body fat was down, the weight was down, the muscle was up. So what could have happened here? Perhaps they were losing fat and they were noticing more muscle, so it seemed like they felt like they're putting on more weight. That's one likely thing. I think that it was still this sort of association that people have with resistance training means being bulky. Resistance training means getting big. And I want to reiterate here, and I want to use this story as a teachable lesson, that the way that you go, the direction you go in terms of putting on weight or losing weight, whether that's fat or muscle or whatever, is 100% on nutrition. I know 100% because it's the lever, it's the thing that decides which direction you go. The exercise you do is pretty much the same in both situations. You might focus a little bit more on burning energy when you're trying to lose weight. You might focus a little bit more on accessory work when you're trying to build. But in both instances, you're going to do resistance training. You're going to do low intensity cardio for the most part. And you're going to have to look at your nutrition in some way. If you're not focusing on it, there is the potential to realize this concern to get bulky. And the only way that happens if you continue progressively your resistance training and you do not change nutrition at all, and more likely your nutrition increase in terms of the amount that you have. Because even if it stayed the same as you're doing more exercise, you're burning more energy, you should slowly see a reversion to the other direction in terms of losing body fat. And this is sometimes, these sort of transition periods are the concern for a lot of people. And again, something that we want to address with our videos. But this was a teachable moment. I think I wanted to speak to it because I think it's important to realize that, to reiterate, you cannot gain bulk without eating more energy than you expend. If you do resistance training, you can do as much resistance training you want. If you're in a calorie deficit, you will not gain muscle or a lot of muscle. And that depends on how much resistance training you've done. So if you've done resistance training for quite some time, you will not put on muscle in a calorie deficit. If you've never done, you might put a little bit because your body was lacking and it's kind of filling back up in the muscle that it probably required earlier, right? You need to be focused on nutrition because that's the lever. That's the thing that points, maybe we want to call it a rudder. It points the direction of the calorie increase or decrease, the body weight increase or decrease. You have to have enough protein, and you need to understand you have to be patient. Sometimes you're in these transition periods and you don't realize change is happening, but it is. And sometimes there's something more to be understood without just looking at the scale, without just looking quickly at the mirror. As we found with this person, the body fat was going down, the weight was going down, the muscle went up from what they were before because they needed more muscle. But all signs were pointing in a direction that we're doing the right thing. There was some frustration without doing extra work or doing it quickly. But that's why you guys have to be patient. That's why you guys have to understand that we are approaching this in the most scientific way possible. And we're going to do this with your best interests at heart. So you will get there. Sometimes it'll take a little patience, but more often than not, it'll take a little bit of faith and trust that we know what we're doing.